Well. This is the Zach Moore podcast. Another episode. This episode, we're only going to talk about the NFL, so it will be a shorter one. I do have Carmella. New ball. New ball. There's a park that's within walking distance, and I took her on a short little run today. Not looking to break any records or anything, but just to get her legs moving as she's kind of coming out of her first heat cycle, so she's able to move a little bit more, able to be a little bit more active. And we went out and hopped out on a run, and there's a giant sports center where it's an outdoor track, a bunch of tennis courts, and I think they might have one or two pickleball courts as well now that they've just added. But it's a nice little area, and we live maybe about like a half mile, maybe three-quarters of a mile away from this place. So go there. This is our place where I'll take her on a run. But we're walking right behind it, and a ball is on the ground, so I decided to pick it up. And if this is your ball, I doubt that you're watching this. I doubt that you would be able to put two and two together that I actually have your ball. But if I do have your ball, then I do not care. It's Carmella's now, so I apologize, but it's a Pen 4. I have not played tennis since I was in middle school, since I think I only did it in sixth grade. And I did it to get a girlfriend, and me and my good friend, uh, Mr. Dean, we'll call him. And he and I we decided to go and try out for the tennis because we were like, it's not really our season, because I was a big soccer, basketball, and baseball. Those were pretty much my sports at that age. And we were like, we got to find something else to do because our sports aren't in season right now. So why not try out for tennis? Should be easy. We should make the team. Try it out. If my memory does serve me correctly, I think he did much better than I am. He was a better athlete than I was. Phenomenal basketball player and overall good dude as well. He's the person who really helped. I wouldn't even say helped, but really influenced me in the terms of Justin Bieber, because I mean he was also a fantastic singer as well. And he kind of showed me those albums. He actually got me the disc version, the CD version, back when those were a big thing. Got me a CD for my 15th or 16th birthday. For no, I might have been younger than that. I don't know the exact age birthday, but for one of my birthdays, the My World 2.0 Justin Bieber album came out, and he got it for me. And that was one of the few times where I got very close to being emotional because of a gift given by a friend of mine. So that's my little story. Yeah, and going back to the tennis thing, I wasn't very good at it. My issue with the tennis was I would hit the ball, and I wasn't able to, or I didn't understand that you had to angle the racket downwards, kind of like ping pong in a way, so that the ball wouldn't fly out. I had been used to playing baseball where you're supposed to hit the ball up into the air. So that was pretty much how my tryouts went. I think we made like the JV team or whatever. And then I think we like immediately quit. But after that happened, I got my first girlfriend at the time. So you could say in some ways it worked. And not to say my friend Dean, he wasn't not getting any chicks. He was a very attractive young man. Probably still is. But anyways, that's my story about my tennis. Other than that, I don't even think I've played tennis in high school. I played one of my friends had a ping pong set, and he was very good. Nate, my friend Nate, he was very good at ping pong, and I sucked cheeks. And I would go over to his house. He was also a big Star Wars fan. So we'd play Star Wars Battlefront, and then in between games, we'd go and we'd play ping pong. And there wasn't a game where I got even within 5 points of him, which was pretty embarrassing. But I understand. There's people that are better at things than I am, including podcasting. All right, week 2. I was thoroughly, thoroughly impressed by some of these teams. I think there are a grouping of teams that are kind of far and away looking like they're going to be a-okay for the remainder of the season. Although one of the teams, primarily my Super Bowl pick, was one of the games where I was watching Red Zone and I saw the score in the game and I said, "Hold up. Wait a minute. Something ain't right." Go over to the game and I watched it. And we'll get to that game later. But I mean, just right off the bat, very, very, I wouldn't even say nervous, but I'm a little concerned. The Vikings and the Eagles on Thursday night. Vikings made it. They made it interesting. I mean, in that fourth quarter, you thought that they would be able to make some real progress. But unfortunately, they were not able to. And as a result of that, this is another primetime game where Kirk Cousins loses, and it just, I mean, I wouldn't even really even say that offensively that Kirk Cousins was the problem, because he wasn't. I mean, you look at expected point summary. I mean, you can look at just the difference between the offense passing and the offense rushing. I mean, their rushing attack obviously has very much suffered since the departure of Dalvin Cook. And now they're kind of left with who's going to be their next running back. And unfortunately, in this game, they didn't have an answer. I mean, Alexander Mattinson, you can see 28 yards rushing on 8 attempts. Not an ideal formula. And as a result of that, you can see right here in the time of possession. I mean, 20 minutes time of possession, almost half of the Eagles. Not a good formula if you're going to want to win these kinds of games, and that just comes down to the rushing. I mean, offensively, I still think that the Vikings can be one of the better teams in the league, just because when you have a pretty good quarterback, I mean, Kirk Cousins isn't the most athletic. He's not the best, and we have Carmela joining us. Pretty say hi, little Carmela. Saying hi. She I took away one of her things, and now she wants to come hop on and say hi. You good? Chilling? All right. Anyways, problem for the Eagles here was, I mean, and you kind of can look at this fourth quarter right here. Giving up these massive plays and late game scoring to now this last touchdown with a minute 10. Okay, I understand. Not exactly the fault of the Eagles. You're just trying to play prevent defense. So in that type of situation, I can understand why many teams are able to actually score in those situations, just because of the way that you're playing your defense. Whereas if they were playing with the same formations, the same groupings of guys that they had earlier in the game, you probably wouldn't be having this issue. But with that being said, I felt as though that the Eagles kind of made a statement in this game in terms of rushing the football. Very quality team. I mean, 175 yards for DeAndre Swift on 28 attempts is pretty crazy, including a 43-yard run as well. A touchdown and 2 touchdowns for Jalen Hurts. I mean, it's very easy to take control of a game when you're able to have your running back run for even say 100, 150 yards in a game, get you down to the field, your quarterback be able to make passes. I mean, 18 for 23, that's a perfect, very high efficiency, probably not throwing a lot of bad passes. I mean, I didn't see anything in the game where he was throwing dangerous throws. He did have an interception, and he did have 4 sacks as well, whereas Kirk Cousins 0 interceptions and only 2 sacks. So that is something that is interesting in regards to Jalen Hurts. Let's remember what Jalen Hurts was in college. Not that he hasn't changed or gotten better. He's gotten remarkably better. Even when he went from Alabama over to Oklahoma, you could see that there was a change in terms of his development as a passer, even in college, and then going into the NFL. It's gone to a different level. But the issue is you're playing against the Vikings, and the Vikings aren't really one of the best historically defensive teams, at least in the past couple of years. We'll just take a look right here. In terms of scoring against, 27 points a game. That's not really what you want to be seeing. And I mean, you look at this, the league rank defense in terms of points, 25th in the league, in terms of yards against, 17th. And I mean, you can see some real holes where this defense is, and 32nd in the league in terms of rushing attempts against, and 29th in the league for yards against. I mean, so maybe I was wrong. Maybe their rushing attack is even worse, and that is through 2 games. Let's be honest. And there was 228 yards in this singular game right here. So that's going to heavily influence the stats. But I mean, you just saw the whole game that the Eagles offensive line and the Eagles units that they have in terms of Jalen Hurts and DeAndre Swift as their running backs seems to be a massive improvement over what they were able to do with Miles Sanders last year. Not any shame or any disrespect to Miles Sanders. I just think that this offense is running so far through 2 games a little bit better. But major takeaways from this game, just feel bad for Kirk Cousins, if I'm being honest. I mean, Kirk Cousins, you thought that when he would go to the Vikings, and they have made some moves, the TJ Hawkinson move was massive for the team, and signing him to an extension, massive for the team. You would expect them to maybe try and capitalize on that, but unfortunately, in a game where you're going to have under 50 yards rushing, not looking good. I mean, Kirk Cousins was able to do his job, but you need the remainder of the team to do theirs. That includes the defense, specifically in this game, the rushing defense, whereas historically, I'll say even going back to last year, the year before, their pass defense was certainly not there. Moving on, the Falcons and the Packers. What are the Falcons going to be this year? Is there a possibility that they're going to be able to be probably the #1 rushing team in the league? Not to say Desmond Ridder isn't doing great. He's been very good this season. And like I said last week, you don't ask for a lot from him. Now this week, 32 attempted passes. That's probably more than I'll get, but I understand it was a close game, so you need to later on in the end, we'll go to the scoring drives. I mean, you see right here, the Falcons, 3 straight drives where they or not 3 straight, but they had 3 drives in the fourth quarter where they were able to score. 0 for the Packers, which is not a good thing. Only scoring points in the second and third quarter, 0 in the fourth, 0 in the first. Something to keep your eye on. Maybe later in the season, we kind of look at, is Jordan Love going to be able to close out or even come back and win these close quarter games? And just through 2 games, I think he's done phenomenal job. I think he's actually going to be a good quarterback for the Packers moving forward. I don't know if he is going to be the guy if we look 5, 6, 7 years down the line, but for the next year or two, I think he's going to be the Packers guy, or at least until his contract is up. But overall in this game, I do think that the Falcons were actually going to be able to win this game. I can't remember what my prediction was, but I'll assume that I had the Falcons winning. Um, and I think going forward, this is probably going to be the number one rushing team in terms of just that's what they do best. They do it really well, and it's not a lot of teams that can stop them. They control the clock because of the way that they play the game. They run the ball a lot, and that allows them to have long scoring drives, keep their defense off the field so that their defense can be plenty rested. And when you have multiple running backs, I mean, you have Desmond Ridder, 10 attempts, Bijan Robinson, 19 attempts, and then 16 attempts for Tyler Algier. And your 2 running backs didn't even score a touchdown. But between the 2 of them, you have almost 200 yards. And then add on your quarterback, he gets you over 200. And the quarterback has a rushing touchdown himself, which I also believe was in the fourth quarter. Exactly. With 11:48 left, Desmond Ridder scores a touchdown in the fourth quarter, something you love to see from your quarterback. Whereas things kind of got away from Jordan Love in the fourth quarter. 0 interceptions, though, so we're still good in that department. And 14 to 25 for 151 yards. The attempts and the completions, little interesting. Little interesting. Now, obviously, in this game, you can see there is no Aaron Jones. So that was also a major factor in this game. If you do have Aaron Jones, maybe you get an extra 50, 60, 75 yards from him, maybe a touchdown or two. And that could really change this game. So this is something to think of moving forward. If you have a team that is able to score the points, and it looks like all things considered, Jordan Love is going to be a fine quarterback. He's not going to be throwing 350 yards a game, but he'll probably average 225 to 250, maybe in that area. And he'll be able to maybe get you a touchdown or two. That could be throwing and rushing, or maybe just 2 passing, or maybe on the rare occasion he'll get 2 rushing, but they really have not been using him as a rusher. I mean, only 2 attempts in the second game. Not exactly what I was expecting because he is a very athletic, but they got plenty of wide receivers in Green Bay. It looks like they do have some pretty solid guys. But when it comes to what I think of the Falcons, I'm really thinking that they could maybe make the playoffs. I mean, so far during the season, it's only the second game. I mean, injuries have already completely dismantled, like completely changed seasons for teams already. And I'll talk about that later. But just for this game, it's just I'm thinking the Falcons could really be good, and hopefully the Packers they can stay healthy. I mean, you need Aaron Jones on that offense. AJ Dillon, New London High School, um, was very effective in the game as well. And he could be, if you need him to be for stints of games, he could be your number one running back. I do think he is very hard to tackle. He's not going to be able to get outside of the tackles and really run away from people. He's not as fast as, say, an Aaron Jones, and also as catching the ball, where he's not awful. It's certainly not one of his strengths, I'll say that, at catching the actual ball. But do you need him to be that? I think you could go 15 attempts with AJ Dillon and still get some very, very good production and scoring out of him as well. I mean, his bread and butter is 5 yards and in. You just rush him up the middle. He's extremely strong. He's extremely athletic in terms of just his strength and power. Not to say that he's not fast, but his main qualities of him as a player are his speed, or I mean his strength and power, is what I'll say. Moving on, let's go to the next game, Bills versus Raiders. Very early in this game, the Bills, it appeared as though the Bills were kind of getting a little defeated. And after this first touchdown, I turned on the game. I was watching Red Zone, and then all of a sudden they just boom, Devontae Adams touchdown, and you're like, what? Oh no, not again. We can't keep doing this. And then it was from that point on, it was the Bills. The Bills really put it on them. I mean, it did take a while for the Bills to actually respond, but once they did, it was literally the rest of the game. The Bills. I mean, the Bills were amazing. I mean, look, going into halftime 21-10. And then they score once in the third and then twice in the fourth. Just an excellent performance by primarily Josh Allen. You see him again, 31 of 37 attempts. Pretty elite, if I'll say the least, for 274 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, which is what we like to see. And then also 3 rushing attempts for 7 yards, which is interesting for him because usually he can be one of their best running backs. But other thing to look for the Bills is I really like their running back group. I think James Cook could really be something. He was fairly good last year, but through 2 games this year, he's looking to be like an actually very high quality running back, which is very good for them. I mean, they do have other running backs. I mean, you see Damian Harris and Latavius Murray getting some carries there, but I have a lot of confidence that James Cook and Josh Allen could really be a fantastic rushing duo, even though one of them is a quarterback. And then defensively, you can kind of see in this game, Max Crosby still going to be very high quality, but Robert Spillane is pretty elite. And then Matt Milano in this game had a fantastic game. This is what I wanted to kind of highlight. Just a fantastic linebacker for them, and he's been probably one of their number one guys on defense going back for a couple of years. They did have some great cornerback play in years prior, but in the last couple of years, Matt Milano has really just been the guy for them. Hopefully they can turn things around and continue playing a little bit better than they have in previous weeks. I mean, the game against the Jets was just another utter what the hell is that? That was a very questionable game and an interesting game to say the least. In our next game, we got the Ravens and the Bengals. What's going on with the Bengals? They did the same thing last year where that game against the Steelers last year, Joe Burrow's throwing crazy turnovers. Joe Burrow looks like he might not even be worth a $275 million contract, a $200 million contract. I mean, the first couple of games last year, they had this same issue where they just got off to a very slow start. And it appears that maybe that same thing is happening again. Now, when you do go up against Lamar Jackson, you do go up against one of the best quarterbacks in the league. So he does have a tendency to play extremely well. But it just looked like these early games and the earlier part of these games for the Bengals, they just come out so cold. I don't know what it is. And I mean, let's take a look here at the stats. I mean, Lamar Jackson played a phenomenal game, almost 250 yards passing with 50 yards rushing. Not terrible. I mean, that's a pretty standard Lamar Jackson game. 0 sacks, 0 interceptions, which is perfect for a quarterback. However, when you take a look at the other side, you just look at Joe Burrow and you kind of wonder what are his receivers like not getting open. I mean, you see 12 targets for 8 receptions for T. Higgins. Okay. Now targets don't necessarily mean that the receiver dropped it, but usually you like to see an even number there or a good one. And then 8 targets for 6 receptions, Tyler Boyd. 8 targets for 5 receptions with Jamar Chase. Now, to kind of go counter to that, you can look at the other side of the ball. 4 targets, 3 receptions, Odell Beckham. 8 targets, 5 receptions for Mark Andrews. 6 targets, 5 receptions for Nelson Aguilar. 5 targets, 4 receptions for Zay Flowers. So this isn't a perfect formula, but through 2 weeks, this is something to keep in mind. Now, you kind of have to be a little concerned just because I would, at this point in his career, I would expect that Joe Burrow maybe not repeat the same mistakes that he's making from the previous year. Now, that could be, and it may most likely be that the Ravens, who have a fantastic defense and have for many years, they kind of know what to do against Joe Burrow to kind of get him off of his rocker, get him a little bit uncomfortable, and kind of see what exactly is effective against him. And you just take a look at the box stats for um, the um, the defense for the sorry, I'm trying to read this as I'm doing this right here, but you look at the defense for the Ravens, and they're one of the best ones in the year. And I thought coming in that they would be a good defense. I think that they really have a good linebacking core. I mean, Patrick Queen and Roquan Smith, that's pretty much all you need to say right there. I mean, you could just have those 2 linebackers in the middle, put 4 on the defensive line, and then just fill the rest in with defensive backs. I mean, they're pretty deep in the defensive end as well. They've drafted really well at corners, safety, those positions. And I think overall that they're one of the better defenses in the NFL. I think Jadeveon Clowney obviously having a pass defense and a sack in this game, as well as 4 tackles and a tackle for loss, 2 QB hits. I mean, a tremendous game for him. And I think that the Ravens will be going forward a solid defense. Seahawks and Lions. This was an interesting one. I think I picked the Lions in this game just because of what I had seen in week 1. It had led me to believe that they would actually be a solid team, but maybe I was wrong. Maybe we're seeing a little bit come back to earth for Jared Goff in this game. 28 of 35 for 323, 3 touchdowns, an interception, and 2 sacks. I am interested to kind of see where he is able to end up at the end of the year, where he's going to be top 5, top 10 in terms of passing yards, passing touchdowns, like he was back when he was on the Rams, when I think some people would argue that he was in his prime. But a very good passing game for both of these quarterbacks, but like in some earlier games, you do see a little drop off in terms of the rushing. I mean, 25 attempts, 82 yards for the Seahawks on the ground, 27 attempts for 102 yards for the Lions. Now, the Lions, they were pretty much running back by committee almost. I mean, you had 1, 2, 3, 4 different players running the ball. Now, David Montgomery had 16 attempts, 7 attempts for Jahmyr Gibbs, 1 attempt for Khalif Raymond, and 3 attempts for Craig Reynolds. And then also for Jahmyr Gibbs as well, he had 7 receptions for 39 yards. So he's going to be moving forward probably not only their number one running back, but one of their better receivers as well. Not to say that Josh Reynolds or Amon-Ra St. Brown aren't quality, but I mean this Gibbs guy is looking pretty pretty solid. And you can also see that on the other side, Kenneth Walker the third, 17 attempts for 43 yards, 2 touchdowns. But his longest run, one of those runs was 14 yards. So the rest of those runs were just eaten up by the Lions defense. And speaking of the Lions defense, they are legit. Um, I do believe CJ Garner Johnson did get injured, however, and that definitely led to them having some issues defensively. But overall, things to look forward to. I do think that both of these teams have a quarterback now. If we're going 5 years in the future, I don't think either of these teams have the same quarterback, or even 3 years in the future. Um, but these are two teams. The Seahawks, I have a little bit more trust in. Um, I mean, they're both 1-1, but in terms of trust for the two teams, I do look at the Seahawks as kind of a team where they can win some shootouts. Um, they do have the receivers for if you need to go on a game-winning drive and you need to um throw the ball down the field. I mean, you have two of the most athletic, particularly with DK Metcalf. I mean, he's a massive athlete and he can pretty much push off of any cornerback and get himself opened. And then Tyler Lockett is just an amazing deep threat, incredible footwork once he's in the end zone and able to keep his feet in bounds when you throw him a ball out there. I mean, two of the top guys in the league. And then they also don't have a bad supporting cast as well. I mean, Noah Fant, you look through, he's got 56 yards on the year, 4 receptions. Um, he's he's somebody to keep an eye on, but he's definitely not their number one guy. Let's say that. But I think he is a good second option. So if you want to run some sets where you do have multiple tight ends, you have the ability to do so. All right. Moving on to the Colts and the Texans. Interesting game. Obviously, this is one of those earlier games where you have some season altering consequences. Right off the bat, these look like to be, with all things considered, the two so far through 2 games, two best guys. It is my hope that these teams finally have their quarterbacks for the remaining future. I mean, you see first quarter Anthony Richardson, I mean, real quick off the bat gives the team 14-point lead. And this game really felt like two things. One is it feels like we are now coming into the age where there is almost an equal value between a quarterback who is good at rushing as well as a quarterback who's good at throwing. And now this is something that has obviously been a thing that has happened in the NFL where you have a Mike Vick, you have a Lamar Jackson, or even go back to Randall Cunningham or whatever quarterback you can think of who in the past has been not the best thrower in the league, but by far the best rusher in the league. And with each of those different players, they have their different strengths. Some of them are fantastic throwers, but what I'm talking about is players where they can change the game. They can change the course of who wins, who loses, using their legs, using their feet. Just like there are quarterbacks who can change the game, Tom Brady, a Peyton Manning, a Drew Brees, who can change the game based on how they throw the ball. Because one, they're so accurate, Doesn't matter how much pressure you put on them. If you have 3, 4, 5 guys, if you just sack them the play before, it does not matter. If they see an opening, they'll read it pre-snap. They'll know exactly what defense you're about to run, and then they'll be able to convert on those plays. I mean, there are fantastic quarterbacks in the league, and not to say that the quarterbacks who are rushing don't look pre-snap and know what's going on. Obviously, they do. They're probably just not as good of a thrower as, say, a Peyton Manning or a Tom Brady, which I don't think is a disrespectful thing to say. That's just not their strength. But what they have in terms of how good Tom Brady or a Peyton Manning is at throwing, you have a Lamar Jackson is at running the football. I mean, there is, in the history of the NFL, there are very few quarterbacks in the league who can say that they're a better rusher of the football than Lamar Jackson. And now in the league, you have three who I believe, and just in terms of rushing the football, you give them the ball in their hands and they run the ball down the field. I'm not talking about overall as a quarterback, but you have three guys in this league who are so far seeming to be some of the greatest that we've ever seen. Obviously, Lamar Jackson. And I don't think you can make an argument. Justin Fields, as a pure rusher of the football, is a talent we have never seen before because, one, he is big, but he is also extremely athletic, super fast, easy guy to try and criticize him for his throwing. Obviously, there's many holes there, decision making, all that stuff, the organization that he's in. I get it. I'm simply stating, as a rusher of the football, Justin Fields is an all-timer. He is, throughout his career, which is very short, but even going back until college, just a very hard guy to tackle because he is so large. He is another guy who I would say, as a rusher, is an all-timer. And now it appears that Anthony Richardson, through 2 games of his career, appears to be, yeah, he's a real talent. He's one of those guys that could get you 100 yards rushing as a quarterback. Maybe get you 3 touchdowns rushing in a game. I mean, he is an all timer that it seems so far throughout his 2-year career. Now he is injured. He did get a concussion in this game, and it was a pretty big hit. So keep an eye out. Maybe he's going to be a little bit more conservative in his rushing. I hope for his sake that is a no, because I think what he does best is running the football, but he also has a crazy amount of arm strength. So he's definitely not lacking in the throwing department. But you look, 3 rushing attempts, 35 yards, 2 touchdowns. Hard to beat. And then 6 of 10 with 56 yards passing. That's not bad either. But on the other side, CJ Stroud, he looks like the real deal. He looks like he could really be something. I thought that, although he wasn't able to win, I thought later in the game I thought he put together some good late game drives. Obviously, scoring 10 points in the fourth quarter makes a big difference. But I believe that going forward, CJ Stroud will be probably a better fit for his team than, say, somebody like a Bryce Young. Not to say Bryce Young is bad or anything, or that CJ Stroud is even a better player. I just think that the Texans are going to be able to build around CJ Stroud a lot better than the Panthers are going to be able to build around Bryce Young. And it appears that maybe there is life. I mean, Nico Collins, 7 receptions, 146 yards, and a touchdown. Not a bad day as a receiver. CJ Stroud. I might have said this previously. I definitely didn't mention his sacks, which are a crazy thing to happen, to have 6 sacks in a game, 2 fumbles and 1 fumble loss. Certainly not ideal there, but I thought that later in the game, in that fourth quarter, he was able to put together some drives, like I said earlier. And so I think that's one bright spot for him in particular. Next up, Chiefs Jags. Should we panic about the Jags? I mean, this first quarter was real close. Really interested to see how the Chiefs are going to be able to respond later this week. But we did, I think, see a little bit of obviously Travis Kelce back in the game. He's a pretty good wide receiver that's listed as a tight end. I mean, he's a good tight end and wide receiver. He could be both. Um, Chiefs, uh, not really. I wouldn't even say concerned with them. I would just say I'll be watching. I'll be watching. Um, third down conversions, 4 of 13 for the Chiefs. Jacksonville, 3 of 12. I mean, just not exactly what you would want to see in these games. And I feel as though that there is a little bit of life in the Jags, but I think ultimately Trevor Lawrence, if this team is going to win, Trevor Lawrence is going to have to play out of his mind and potentially throw 300, 350 yards a game because I just don't trust this team defensively. They have guys there though. They have guys. I mean, you look at Trevon Walker, you look at Josh Allen, you look at Caleb Chason. I mean, these are guys who are very, very good, but I just don't know if this team is going to be able to do anything unless they're the remainder of their defensive guys and Trevor Lawrence are able to step up. And unfortunately, I don't think that they'll be able to. I wouldn't be surprised though, because Trevor Lawrence is a pretty good football player. Chargers and Titans. This was an interesting game. This was a crazy one. Chargers 0-2 to start the season. Not what I had expected. Um kind of looking here, let's go to the scoring drives. I mean, you see right here, Chargers in this fourth quarter, 10 points, third quarter, not looking good, and then second quarter. I mean, I have a lot of questions primarily with the Tennessee Titans, and I know was pretty high on them. Um, I mean, my pick is going all right so far. They're 1-1. Defensively, I think they're a great team. I mean, Jeffrey Simmons, it's hard to not be good when that guy's on your defensive line. Um, but big concern is Ryan Tannehill. I mean, a great stat line. You look at this. Wow. 20 of 24, 246 yards and a touchdown. That's good, right? But you do have 5 sacks and you also have just kind of disappearance in the fourth quarter. Just a quarterback where you can't trust him. Much like how Kirk Cousins is not the problem with the Vikings, I feel as though Ryan Tannehill is the problem for the Titans. You look at the 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 lack of being able to be an explosive offense, I feel is very greatly hindered by Ryan Tannehill. Now, part of that is because of who they drafted. I mean, you look at who maybe their number one wide receiver is, not named DeAndre Hopkins. Also, DeAndre Hopkins, five targets. Um, hello, 5 targets. Um, another conversation for another day. 4 receptions, 40 yards for DeAndre Hopkins. And then probably their number one guy. I mean, is it safe to say Treylon Burks is the best wide receiver on the Titans? He certainly appears to be this far into the season, which is not ideal. Not ideal. But very interested to see what the Chargers are going to be able to do. I mean, they obviously lost this game. They have one of the better rosters in the league, but as it stands right now, they just don't seem to be ready to really do anything. And I just hope for Justin Herbert's sake he didn't sign a contract that's gonna bite him in the ass. But I guess we'll see. Next up, the one of the games that hurt my soul. Hurt my soul because I'm so confident in Justin Fields when I shouldn't be. Justin Fields is a tremendous talent. I spoke earlier about how there are three guys in the league who are pretty much at this point like all timers when it comes to their rushing ability. But it's just this Bears team is just not good. They just fall apart. They just fall apart. They make unnecessary turnovers and just that. I mean, you can just look here. The last scoring play in this game, 2 minutes remaining before the 2 minute warning. Shaq Barrett, a 4-yard interception, pick six. I mean, to make him go up 10 points. It's just awful. It's just not an ideal formula to win. I'm very hurt. I'm very hurt by the Bears. I was expecting them to be not an amazing team, but I expected them to be okay. But when you have Justin Fields throwing basically 50% completion percentage, more interceptions than touchdowns, and 6 sacks in the game is just not good. And then rushing the ball. He did have a touchdown on the ground, but 3 total yards rushing. I mean, this team is just seemingly just can't get their act together. They always shoot themselves in the foot. And I mean, 2 fumbles for Fields as well. He's just not, this team is just not able to hold on to the football. Just a very poor performing offense. I mean, 236 total yards in a game against the Buccaneers team where they have Baker Mayfield as their quarterback. And Baker Mayfield has looked pretty serviceable this year. He looks like he's a still a high quality quarterback. But this game should have not have been like this. This should have been Justin Fields rushing for 50 to 75 yards, maybe throwing one less pick, maybe not having any fumbles, and I think the Bears could easily win this game. But unfortunately, that's not how the cookie crumbles. Giants Cardinals. Um, with Saquon, it's kind of one of those things where it's dependent on what Saquon's health is going to be. He did injure his ankle. But when he was in the game, he was electric. He's as good as we know him to be, one of the best running backs in the entire NFL. But against a Cardinals team who, coming into the year, we knew were going to be bad, you still look at the penalties right here for the Giants, 75 yards worth of penalties. Not ideal. And once again, this is against the Cardinals. I mean, you would have to expect that your defense would not give up 100 yards rushing on the ground to James Conner. Almost 250 yards passing from Joshua Dobbs. I understand, like I said in previous games, once it gets to these later games, you have to be able to kind of stop the bleeding. But they were able to, in the fourth quarter, completely shut out the Cardinals. And in the second half of this game, they really turned on the Jets. But a lot of concern if you're a New York Giants fan to see what this team is able to do through the year. I don't think that they should have signed Daniel Jones to a contract extension worth that amount of money, I would have really, really considered maybe letting him go into free agency and maybe trading up in the draft to get one of these young quarterbacks. And I mean, an Anthony Richardson and Saquon Barkley backfield would be electric in New York. And I think that Anthony Richardson would be perfect in that New York market. But unfortunately, that is not the case. But in this game, maybe Arizona could win 4 games. I mean, maybe they could. They have the guys. It's obviously just a quarterback issue. It's a major quarterback issue, but Rondale Moore, 1 catch for 14 yards. I mean, that's not helping you. Zach Pascal, 1 catch for 9 yards. That's not helping you out either. You brought guys in who you thought were going to be really good, and some of them have been. It's just other circumstances surrounding them have just not helped you out. 49ers Rams. This is the game where I teased where I said, am I in trouble? Because the Rams made this a really interesting game. I mean, look at the score going into halftime. Tied up at halftime. The 49ers and the Rams. Rams were expected to be the worst team in the league this year. Get me very concerned, very worried. I am looking to the skies to answer my prayers that my Super Bowl pick will be indeed become a true factor this year. I'm hoping that Brock Purdy is going to be enough. I'm hoping, because Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, all the weapons that you could ask for. These are all at their position top 25 players. I think you can make an argument for Brandon Ayuk. I mean, he's a fantastic wide receiver. And Deebo Samuel, we know who Deebo is. All around just a fantastic player offensively. And now 55 pass attempts for Matthew Stafford is kind of crazy. I wasn't expecting that to happen in this game. But when you have Puka Nacua on your team and he's getting 15 receptions for almost 150 yards, I mean, this guy's come out of nowhere. You would expect that the 49ers would be able to shut this down, but in this game, they just weren't able to. And I mean, you just take a look at just the names on the defense for the 49ers, and you're like, okay, where was Javon Hargrave? Where was Javon Kinlaw? I mean, Cleveland Farrell? I mean, Nick Bosa? Bosa didn't have the worst game, 3 quarterback hits, but Eric Armstead, 4 tackles. Dre Greenlaw, fantastic game for him. A pass defense, 11 total tackles. Fred Warner, amazing, obviously. But I'm hoping that for the remainder of the year that Brock Purdy can be a serviceable quarterback, and I hope that he doesn't get figured out. I hope that teams aren't able to scheme up against him, because that's really the low point of their offense. And this game against the Rams was a real opportunity for Brock Purdy to kind of show who he was. I mean, two quarterbacks where one's at the lower end of his career and the other one seems like he's just about to hit his peak. I mean, this is the year where I feel as though that this team's going to win the Super Bowl. And I'm hinging my bet on Brock Purdy, because outside of Brock Purdy, this is one of the best rosters in the NFL. If you take all of the players on this team in their prime, some of the names on this list are crazy, particularly the defense. The defense is amazing. But to give up to 23 points to the Rams is kind of interesting. Coming up next, Cowboys and Jets. This is interesting. Either the Cowboys have one of the best defenses that we've ever seen, which is probably the case, or the teams that they played are offensively just absolute hogwash. I mean that first game was a masterclass by the Cowboys. Second game here against the Jets. Obviously, the Jets know Aaron Rodgers, and maybe he'll come back if they make the playoffs. I think we will see Aaron Rodgers, which will be interesting because you'll have a pretty much a full 16 game season of Zach Wilson, and then basically almost 17 of Zach Wilson, minus 4 snaps. Maybe they keep Zach Wilson in because he's been running the offense. He's gotten them to the playoffs, but I think that they would opt for Aaron Rodgers once they hit the playoffs. But right here, 3 interceptions, 3 sacks for Zach Wilson. Um, not not looking good. Dak Prescott, he was okay in this game. Statistically, 31 to 38 for 255 yards with 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and a sack. I'm interested to see what he's able to do when the season's all said and done. This was a great defensive team in the Jets, so I was interested to see just how good this offense is doing. I mean, obviously you don't have Zeke Elliott, and their rushing attack has not slowed down. I mean, they're great at running the football. Their offensive line is still, as old as it may be, it's still very, very high quality. But the main thing for the Cowboys is just how good their defense is. I mean, 3 interceptions in a game is something you usually don't see, but this secondary is legit. This is a legit secondary where you make a mistake and you get picked off by Trayvon Diggs. And if you wait more than 5 seconds, Micah Parsons is coming off the edge and he's going to chase you down, and he's faster than you and he's stronger than you. And there's nothing you can do about it. Your offensive line are too slow. Your running back is probably too slow as well. It's just hard to game plan against Micah Parsons, and then to have also DeMarcus Lawrence on that edge as well, particularly the defensive line. He's always going to be a top of the line defender. And then you have Stephon Gilmore, who was brought in through free agency. He's looking to be a good addition. He's I wouldn't say he's their number one defensive back by any stretch, but he still is very, very good in his age in many more ways than I could talk about. So going forward, let's see what the Cowboys are able to do going forward. Let's take a look at their upcoming schedule if we can. Cardinals, Patriots, 49ers, Chargers, then a bye week in week 7, Rams, Eagles, Giants, Panthers, Commanders. I mean, you look forward and it appears that this defense is going to be pretty elite for the remainder of the season. So, but offensively for the Cowboys, I think that if they keep the same approach where it's not asking Dak Prescott to try and win you the game, I just need Dak to make some nice throws. I don't need him throwing bombs down the field. I certainly need a touchdown in the second half. I mean, look at this. Brandon Aubrey field goal, Brandon Aubrey field goal, Brandon Aubrey field goal, and Brandon Aubrey field goal, all in the second half. Not an ideal approach now, however. In a second half, they were up at halftime 18-10. And then in the second half, they just completely shut out the Jets. So I do understand why you wouldn't want to be throwing the ball, but still, if you do get in a game against the 49ers who are coming up, or even the Patriots aren't the easiest team to beat either. Defensively, they're still a high quality team. I don't want to see Dak Prescott trying to throw the ball down the field, try and stretch the ball out. I don't think that's his strength. I think he's very good at throwing maybe 10, 15 yards down the line, maybe throwing into tight coverage as well. It helps when you have a player like CeeDee Lamb, who's extremely physical and able to catch the ball when there's not much of a window for him to do so. But we'll see. This is definitely a team in the Cowboys to keep an eye on. Starting off 2-0 with two amazing performances, but I don't know how much to trust it. And then coming up next, probably the one of the best games of the week. I mean, the Commanders and the Cowboys was an electric game. Uh, the the Broncos were almost able to win it. I mean, the Russell Wilson final play of the game was was one of the crazier moments that I've seen this season thus far. Um, we may be seeing a little bit of a Russell Wilson emergence. And Russell Wilson, I think, is over the course of his career been one of the best quarterbacks in the game. I just don't know exactly what's happened in Broncos country. I am not sure. I'm not an expert enough to tell you what is exactly the issue. But be that as it may, Commanders are looking like a real good offense. I mean, you bring in a new coordinator who's also serving as basically the assistant head coach. Um, I will be interested to see how good the rushing attack for the Washington Commanders can stay 122 on the ground with two touchdowns for this Commanders team is promising. They do have some really good running backs as well, and their quarterback Sam Howell. So far throughout the season, he has not looked like a bust. He's had some really bad moments. But I mean, I would expect that from him. I wouldn't say that in his draft class he was in the top two or three guys. So I didn't have much expectations for him. However, I'm not too concerned about offensively what this team can be. Like I said, big question mark for Sam Howell just because he is so young. But I mean, when you have a defense as good as this one, I mean Chase Young, Montez Sweat, Deron Payne. I mean, you're pretty good. You're pretty good. And then in the secondary, Kendall Fuller, and let's not forget Jonathan Allen. I mean, you got guys on defense. You got real quality guys on defense. Not to say that the secondary for the Broncos is probably the best in the NFL, if not one of the top 3 to 5. I mean, you have Kareem Jackson who's out here delivering crazy hits, knocking guys out of games. Um, and then you have Pat Surtain, who is one of the best lockdown corners. You see many of these videos online of the corners saying who the best guy is, and many of them are now saying it's Surtain, which is crazy to see just because he is so young. But hopefully, the Broncos, I mean, to give up 35 to the Commanders and Sam Howell is not a good look for your defense, even though I was just singing their praises. Moving on, Dolphins Patriots. Thought that this would be a bigger game for the Dolphins. And it wasn't. I mean, you look at Bill Belichick on the other side, and I would assume many people would think that this would be this close of a game, but I felt as though the Dolphins would be able to run away with this, but the Patriots made it very close in the end. But unfortunately, they just weren't able to get the stops that they needed to. I mean, you come look here, 288 total yards for the Patriots compared to 389 for the Dolphins. 7 of 15 on third down compared to 4 of 10. Even 1 of 2 on fourth down conversions. Pretty much even in time of possession. More first downs. I mean, not a terrible game. And I mean, both teams had interceptions. 1 sack for the Dolphins, 4 for the Patriots against Mac Jones. Certainly not ideal, but I mean, Ramondre Stevenson, 15 carries for 50 yards and a touchdown. 3 catches for 10 yards. I mean, Not a breakout performance by him, I would say, but certainly he's a very serviceable, very high quality running back in the NFL. Yeah, like I said earlier in the year, I think part of the reason why I do like the Dolphins is because their secondary is just that good, and then their defensive line is very good as well. They have some real stars there. But you do have Bradley Chubb, who I feel as though has really kind of switched over from the Broncos to the Dolphins and really cemented himself as a good pass rusher in the NFL. I wouldn't say one of the top guys, but he certainly is very good. And then particularly with their defense, I mean Xavier Howard, they haven't even activated Jalen Ramsey yet. I mean, that's how good that this secondary is already, and I just can't imagine what it's going to be like once he's added. I mean, Eli Apple, two pass defense, love to see it. But moving forward, I will keep an eye on particularly the defensive performance of the Patriots. I just don't trust. I just can't trust Mac Jones. I don't think he's the guy moving forward. I think that there's not too many things about him that really impress me that make me want to give him my franchise. And if I were the Patriots, I would try and look into the draft and see who's there. You currently right now have some really good weapons. Brought in Mike Gesicki, brought in Juju Smith-Schuster. You have some guys. You can stretch the ball down the field. You still have Devontae Parker. You still have Hunter Henry. Yes, you brought in Ezekiel, and he's probably past his prime, and you're not asking him to do too much, but you have guys on your team offensively who can really put points on the board and really help your quarterback out. Now it's on your quarterback to go out there and perform, which I'm not too sure Mac Jones can do. Saints, Panthers. Panthers are almost able to win the game. But the Saints are just, I guess it's just a a quest of two teams with one who just has a little bit more experience at quarterback, and that seemed to be towards the end the thing that finally helped the Saints kind of hold out in the end. I mean, offensively, not a fireworks fest. I mean, 153 yards passing for the Panthers, 236 for the Saints. Certainly not a shootout as we would call it, but still, I have some trust in Bryce Young. I mean, no interceptions, 4 sacks, not terrible. Obviously, 4 sacks is not ideal, but um, Bryce Young in the future, I do hope that he is going to be able to get outside of the pocket and really extend plays. Because if you remember the last touchdown of the game, it kind of appeared like it was a designed run. Bryce Young goes out to the right. He kind of fakes. He looks left. He looks right, and then he just dumps it off to a guy in the end zone. Like I'd love to see a lot more of that from Bryce Young, because that's where I think that's how he kind of performed when he was in college. And I think that that's kind of what he'll be as an NFL player. I'm not asking him to be an Anthony Richardson where he's going to be rushing the ball 10 to 15 times trying to get an extra 100, 150 yards on the ground. Like, that's not the type of player that I'm thinking he's going to be. But there is a possibility that he could still turn out to be a very good player. But I unfortunately think that the team around him is just not there. He's got names. He's got Miles Sanders, Chuba Hubbard, fantastic college player. Laviska Shenault, he's okay. Adam Thielen, unfortunately, I think he's too old, but he still is serviceable. And DJ Chark, who a couple of years ago I would have said he was a very good receiver, but at this point, I'm not too sure. I am not too sure. So unfortunately, the Panthers might be stuck in this position for quite some time. Our final game of the week, Steelers Browns. I thought the Browns would do much better in this game. I was extremely disappointed in the lack of fourth quarter Deshaun Watson. Um, and much of that was because of the defense of the Steelers. I mean, one of the best pass rushes in the entire NFL. When you have Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt, it makes that a lot easier. And in this game, I think the stat was this was the first defensive touchdown by TJ Watt. Also in this game, TJ Watt set the Steelers sack record. So congrats to him for that. But going into the game, um, I mean, just 6 sacks for a quarterback like Deshaun Watson, who some of these you looked at it and you're like, you're just standing in the pocket, move, 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 get go, 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 and he would just get sacked. And at this point with Deshaun Watson, it's more of you need to prove to me that you're even a glimpse of what you once were. And now maybe there is a possibility that this has a lot to do with the off the field issues that he's had, which are completely understandable. Um, However, the reality is the Browns invested hundreds of millions of dollars into you, fully guaranteed, and you got to live up to your contract. It does not matter what happened off the field to you, as real as that may be, or the demons that you may be fighting may really be. Unfortunately, the team does not care. The team feels as though that they paid you all this money, all fully guaranteed, the most guaranteed money in any contract in the professional football league history, National Football League. And when it comes to these fourth quarter games, I mean, a couple of years ago, this was an easy dub for you. These are the Steelers. It's not like they have the best secondary ever. You can throw on them. Yeah, they have Minka Fitzpatrick, but he did get injured late into the game. But you got to come up with more than this. 22 of 40 for 235 yards, a touchdown, an interception, 6 sacks for Deshaun Watson. It is something that I'm very concerned about. Very concerned about. And now, I mean, with Nick Chubb getting injured, what's this team going to be? I mean, you had the pieces. Elijah Moore, I thought he played pretty good in this game. Later in the game, I thought he made some really nice plays. Amari Cooper, still one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. David Njoku, one of the biggest tight ends in the league. Now he did have a fumble, which was a crazy play and which ultimately helped the Steelers get back in there. But the Browns have a lot that they need to figure out, and I don't know at this point in his career if Deshaun Watson's even a top 10 or a top 15 quarterback. I mean, is he? I want to say that he is because I've seen what he's done in the past, and I've seen the amazing performances in the playoffs that Deshaun Watson has shown us with not superior teams, inferior teams. What's going on? I just don't know. Is it the off the field issues? Is it he's fallen off a cliff? I mean, I don't know. Is it that these defensive teams are just able to figure him out? Is it that his offensive line is so awful that all of a sudden he's just getting too much pressure? I mean, he's got some really good guys on the offensive line, but I don't think that's the reason. I just think it's more so that Deshaun Watson is really struggling. Really struggling. You can't have these late game issues. And then for the Steelers, I mean, one of the worst offenses in the league, period. They can't run the football and they can't pass the football. Kenny Pickett, 15 of 30 for 222 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 2 sacks, 4 rushing attempts, -6 yards. His longest run of the day, -1. Um, yeah, let's not have any more designed runs for Kenny Pickett. That might be a smart idea. I'm not sure. Anyways, you look at the lack of Pat Fryermuth in this game. Your best tight end, one of your best receivers on the team. Let's not talk about kind of the remainder of these guys. I mean, George Pickens is a fantastic receiver. He had 4 catches though on 10 targets, and not 6 of those were not because of George Pickens just not, whoa, where's the ball, not being able to catch the ball. No, 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 no. Some of those had to do with who was throwing the ball, and unfortunately, I don't know about Kenny Pickett. I mean, the end of last year he looked good, but maybe it's an AFC North thing where just the first 3 games of the season, every single team in there is just booty cheeks. Or I guess teams not named the Ravens, but I just don't know. I think the Steelers really got to get their act together, and then there there was some videos that I saw because I live here in Pittsburgh of people at the game talking about or starting a chant, I should say, starting a chant about firing the offensive coordinator, Matt Canada. And I mean, if you're a fan, you've had a little bit, couple of brews, you pre-gamed before. Um, who knows what these people are doing? Sneaking in whatever, having a little bit of jack in their pocket before they walk into the stadium, blah 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 blah. Then they go in. Who knows? Who knows the level of intoxication? Maybe these people are completely sober. I doubt it, but I could be wrong. Could be some people just having some grand old time, enjoying the the lovely beauty of sporting events. That could be it, but I don't think it is. What I think it is a frustration with this fan base who's had so much stability in the past decades. I mean, you've had Mike Tomlin there for many, many years. When I was a kid, he was the coach of the Steelers. I mean, there's Belichick, there's Andy Reid, there's Mike Tomlin, and is there really anybody else who's been at their team for as long as those 3 guys? I don't think so. And when you have an organization who is highly regarded as the Steelers, where year after year you have players who are willing to come back, much like the New England Patriots on lesser deals, you're able to grow your own talent, and you have some good draft picks. But unfortunately, now it appears that this offense is just not going to be able to get it done. And part of that reason is on Najee Harris, 10 rushes for 43 yards, including a 21-yard run. So take away one of those runs, 9 rushes for 22 yards. Not ideal. This offensive line is just not getting it done. That's part of the reason why Kenny Pickett is getting so much pressure, because the offensive line can't stop. I mean, you just look at you look at the Cleveland defense. They're elite. You knew going into this game, and why I thought that the Browns would win. You knew that Kenny Pickett was going to get a lot of pressure in this game, but unfortunately, he just wasn't able to really help the team out at all. He just all around a bad game for both of these teams. Although the Steelers did win, their defense scored more than their offense. And for the Browns, Deshaun Watson, you got to figure it the hell out. I don't I don't know. I just I'm nervous. I'm nervous. Very, very nervous. All right. Let's kind of go up, talk about some of the latest news around the league. Um, let's see. Laurent Duvernay Tardif announces retirement. Uh, talking about retiring. Okay, very cool. Bills Christian Kirksey is going to retire. Buffalo's practice squad has a new Nathan Peterman was re-signed to the 53-man roster. Uh-oh. And then still keep an eye out on the Colts to kind of see about their current status. But let's go into week 3. Now we can kind of get into some power rankings. We have 2 weeks of who the best teams kind of are. So let's go to the bottom of this list. Once at bottom of the list, Cardinals. Yeah. Cardinals 0-2, looking to be one of the worst offenses in the league. Yeah, the bad. Despite leading 20-0 at halftime and 28-7 midway through the third quarter, Arizona collapsed in the second half. Wow. Joshua Dobbs, yeah, I mean, you can't expect him to win you all these games. I mean, he's been a backup and out of the league for many reasons. 31. Yeah. There's only so much silver lining a franchise can inlay after a 0-2 start. It's hard to give Houston credit for fighting back against the Colts. Yeah. With a group that entered the game missing both starting safeties, both starting tackles, and 2 interior O linemen. Probably the brightest part of the 31-20 loss was rookie CJ Stroud. Right shoulder injury throughout the game. Yeah, I think CJ Stroud is going to be able to be a fine quarterback. It's just, can this defense hold teams to maybe under 30 points? Is that too much to ask? Colts, yeah, the concern with Anthony Richardson. He hasn't looked overwhelmed facing NFL defenses. He's already thrown some really nice passes and dangerous as a runner. He's also left 2 straight games with injuries. In week 1, he left with a knee injury, and in week 2, he landed in the concussion protocol. That week 1 injury is a little bit more concerning if you just take it on face value. Coming up next, the Bears. 12 straight losses for the Bears. Just not the way you want it to happen. Not the way that you would expect, or at least that I expected this season to go. They've allowed the second most points and are near the bottom of the passing efficiency metric, 6.5 yards per attempt, 3 interceptions, and a sack rate of 13.2%. Year 3 for Fields. Can he get it together? Can he become the quarterback that I think that he currently is right now? A guy who can be Lamar Jackson-esque. As a passer, nowhere close, but as a runner, he's pretty close. He's pretty close. I do think Lamar Jackson is a much better thrower than Justin Fields. I don't think that's a crazy thing to say. Giants. If you asked after week, this is interesting. Through their first 90 minutes of football, Giants are outscored 60-0 by their opponents, which is kind of crazy. But the Giants were able to come back in that game, so give them props. But I just, with the Saquon Barkley potential injury that maybe lingers, I don't know where this team goes for the remainder of the season. I think this is going to be a worse year than they had last year. I don't think that's a crazy statement to make. Although the Panthers at 0-2 above the Giants, let's see what they got to say. By the time the Panthers were able to get Jonathan Mingo involved and Bryce Young finally settled down against New Orleans, it was too late. The 0-2 start isn't shocking, but it has to be disappointing because Carolina was in both games in the fourth quarter. Frank Reich told us to have patience, and we certainly do, but that's now 2 touchdowns in 23 offensive drives. It's not all on Young, but his 3 turnovers in 2 games could have been avoided. There's a foundation here, and the defense played well again. Still, Carolina is stuck in the mud for now until the passing game starts humming. I mean, I would also say that their defense doesn't help them out as well. Although they played great against the Saints, defense was not the issue in the Saints game. Raiders, yeah, Like I said, well, the first drive looked promising. They marched right down the field against the Buffalo Bills, scored a touchdown to Devontae Adams. That's a pretty good formula. In the final 57 plus minutes, they were outscored 38-3, which is not good. Not good. Yeah, the rest of this Raiders offense didn't produce enough worthy plays while it was a close game. Plus, losing the turnover battle 3-0 on the road barely works out well. Back to the drawing board. Number 25, Patriots 0-2, pair of home losses. They played good teams though. So I can't really say that. Yeah, I think the Patriots, you put them up against any of these other teams, maybe the Raiders beat them, but the Patriots are still not one of the worst teams in the league. I just worry about Mac Jones. Is he going to be that guy? Because the rest of their team is filled with a lot of veterans and a lot of good quality players. So I have high hopes for the Patriots moving forward. Number 24, the Rams. Sorry, the Rams. Okay. Okay. They have impressed me this year. They've done much better than I thought that they would. Okay. They have 3 points here. Sean McVay can still coach. Yeah. Matthew Stafford still has it, even taking into account the second half picks. 3, the Puka Nakua hype is for real. Yeah, Cooper Cup, what happens when he comes back? I am not sure. Then next up is the Denver Broncos. I'm interested to see. The Broncos' losses have been by 1 and 2 points. It feels like they were in a few plays away from being 2-0, but you can't overlook the fact that the Broncos were up 21-3 Sunday with the ball on the Washington 40-yard line midway through the second quarter. From there, Washington put up 18 straight points as Denver offense froze and the defense allowed scoring chance on 6 straight possessions. Whoa. It's just with the Broncos, it's Russell Wilson has these glimpses, these moments where he's rolling out of the pocket. He looks left, he looks right, he throws a dime down the field. But then there's just the next couple drives after that. It's just a bad throw into the dirt. It's just another 3 and out, another 3 and out. And then all of a sudden, that lead that you once had is gone. It's just, the consistency with Russell Wilson is certainly not there. Oh, number 22, the Vikings. In 2 games, the Vikings have handed off 26 times, netting a total of 69 yards, with a long run of 9 yards. According to Next Gen Stats, only 30.8% of those runs were deemed successful. They've only attempted 4 runs in 30 fourth quarter plays. One, a 3-yard loss on first and goal from the one, another a Kirk Cousins scramble. The other 2 were 6 and 7-yard gains from Alexander Mattinson. Ugh. I mean, it is hard to run against the Eagles, but still, you have to be able to put up some real running stats against teams if you're going to want to win. Coming up next, 21, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Even with this said, I'd still put the Vikings above the Bucs because the passing attack for the Vikings is second to none. One of the best quarterback wide receiver duos in the NFL, not only last year, but probably the year prior. I mean, Justin Jefferson is that guy. But with the Bucs, yeah, Mike Evans looking good. Shaq Barrett, amazing. Baker Mayfield looking really good. Looking really good. So maybe they can do some things in their division and surprise a lot of people. Number 20, the Tennessee Titans. While they lacked a big or timely plays in the opener, the Titans made up for it in Sunday's OT victory. Yeah, I thought that the Titans would coming into this year be probably the best team in their division, and that's not saying much, but let's hope that they continue to be somewhat okay. But I just worry about Ryan Tannehill with this team. I don't know what to get, and it's not like they have multiple of their first round quarterbacks on that roster. Well, I guess Will Levis is technically not a first round quarterback, but he still is a top of the line. He wasn't like a 6th round pick or an undrafted free agent quarterback or anything like that. Like he was highly drafted. I don't know. I don't know. Number 19, the Commanders. 2-0 for the first time in a dozen years. Coming back from down 18 on the road and going on a 32-6 scoring run is a very impressive. Yeah. Now I would attribute that more so to maybe Sam Howell isn't the second coming of Tom Brady. Maybe Brian Robinson isn't the best running back in the game. Maybe just the Broncos just fell apart. Offensively, the Broncos just disappeared, and defensively, they just were on the field too much and they got tired and then they just got exposed. I think that's more likely than the all of a sudden Washington Commanders are a great offensive team. Not to say that they're um, not good. I mean, Sam Howell, 5 scoring drives in the final 32 minutes. Certainly a good performance by him, but I'm not buying it. Packers at 18. I feel like this is okay. Let's see. It didn't feel like they blew Sunday's game against the Packers, but they led by 12 points with 12 minutes left. Yes. And with that being said, they did not have like I said, I think they had 20 minutes of time of possession. Which is pretty crazy. Uh with what they were able to do despite not having Aaron Jones against the team. I feel as though they get Aaron Jones back. This is a top 15 team in the league. I feel that the Packers defensively are still very good. And then at the quarterback position, they're still okay. I don't think Jordan Love is as big of a downgrade as we would have expected from last year. The Steelers, good Lord. What are we doing? What are we doing? I get. Uh, I get the defense is amazing. Top 5, top 10 defense. I would say in that 5 to 10 range right there. You could make an argument 5-1 range. You can make an argument there. But just offensively, they're in the bottom 20 to 30 teams. I mean, you have a quarterback who not accurate with the ball, not making smart decisions. You have a running back who can't run the ball. I mean, the Steelers versus the Commanders. Give me the Commanders. The Steelers versus the Packers. Give me the Packers. The Steelers versus the Bucks. Give me the Bucks. The Vikings, you have an argument. The Broncos, that's a close game. That's a close game there. But for this high for the Steelers, I don't know. I don't know. Chargers at 0-2 at 16. The thing with the Chargers is that it's a weird thing because they have really solid players. I mean, Joey Bosa is one of the best defensive linemen in the NFL. Justin Herbert is one of the 5 to 10 best quarterbacks in the NFL right now. Austin Eckler is an amazing running back. I mean, what's going on with this team? What's going on with them? This they should not be this low on the list. Many people thought that they would challenge the Chiefs for the division. Seahawks at 15, okay. I did like their week 2 performance was better. Yeah, week 1 isn't forgotten, but it's forgiven is what they say. Geno Smith, can he turn his career around and potentially lead the Seahawks to the playoffs? I think he can. Falcons at 14. Wow. Yeah, but I think the thing for the Falcons is they know what their identity is. They know that they're a run first team and that they have the guys to they're gonna probably get at least 125 yards on the ground rushing every single game. I don't think there's really going to be a game where they get 50 yards rushing between Tyler Algier, Bijan Robinson, and Desmond Ritter. I mean, between those 3 people, It's going to be very hard to keep them under 100 yards rushing in a game. I think they know what their bread and butter is. They know what their strengths are, and they're going to keep going at them. And hopefully that defense, with all that time where they're on the bench and they're getting to rest and they're getting to stay fresh, I think that they'll win these low scoring games, 20 to 27 points, kind of the range, the top range of points scored in a game for this team. I don't think they're going to be a very vertical offense. I think they're going to stay pretty much in between the tackles and try and run the clock out and try and when you need to convert third and short situations, hopefully you get some positive yardage on those first two plays via run. And I think that this team is potentially going to smell. It's gonna smell the playoffs. 13, the Browns. Defensively, amazing. Offensively, no Nick Chubb. Just with the performance, primetime game. You have the ball in the fourth quarter, multiple opportunities with Deshaun Watson, and he poops the bed. I don't know if there is anything that I could really trust right here. I just don't. I just don't know. I don't know with them. 12, the Bengals. Many people thought that this would not happen, but so far it has. 0-2, 12th. I don't think this is a bad ranking anyway. I think you do a rematch between the Bengals and the Browns. At this point, the Bengals are going to beat them up. Joe Burrow's calf injury. Is that? Here's what it says. Joe Burrow's calf injury gives the offense some cover, but what is the defense's excuse? Failing to get off the field on several third and short plays will be the lasting memory of Sunday's loss to the Ravens. Maybe that's more so just the Ravens are that good. I think that's more so the case. The Jets at 11. Defensively, yeah, they deserve to be there, but offensively with Zach Wilson as the quarterback, he has the weapons around him. Can he make the right decision and the right play? I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. Saints at 10. Whoa. Saints win the first 118 plus minutes of the season without allowing a touchdown. Wow. Yeah, their defense is really legit. And I think coming into the season, it was the defense we know is going to be there. It's just offensively, what are they going to look like? They pretty much completely changed their offense. I mean, you have Alvin Kamara suspended for another game. So what's the team going to look like once he gets back? I mean, this is a team that looks like to be on the rise. And I think that ultimately Derek Carr is good enough to get you into the playoffs. He's just good enough where he's not going to win you too many games. Yeah, he can give you a fourth quarter drive if you need to. But he's not going to take over a game like a Patrick Mahomes or even a former Saint Drew Brees. But he still is serviceable, and that defense is just good enough to completely shut out these other teams. The Jags, yeah. 3 of 12 on third down and back-to-back games is certainly not ideal. But you got the weapons, you got the quarterback. Maybe by the end of the season, they'll figure it out. Maybe. And then final sentence here, the offensive line needs to pick it up these next two games without the suspended Cam Robinson. So once he gets back, expect a little bit more time in the pocket for Trevor Lawrence. Maybe that first game, there's a little bit of rust, but should be smooth sailing from there. Cam Robinson is legit. Coming up next, the Lions. Good ranking for them. Offensively, they can beat you in a lot of ways. You can have Jared Goff throw for three. Jared Goff, I mean, we've seen it this year. He has the potential to go off and throw almost 400 yards. Like he has games where he looks like he did once with the Rams. There are those games and there are those weapons there for him. It's just defensively, are they going to be able to keep 3 and outs coming at a consistent pace. And I mean, right here, the CJ Gardner Johnson may be out for multiple weeks, potentially the entire season, with a potentially torn pectoral. Really bad. He was a major offseason get for them. He was fantastic with the Eagles last season, but someone to keep your eye on there to see kind of what this defense looks like, as the Lions are in a pretty tightly contested division. Number 7, the Ravens. Could potentially put them higher. I think their defense and their offense are fantastic. I think both groups have their weaknesses, like the rushing attack is a major strength, but the running backs, maybe not for the Ravens. And then on the defensive side of the football, linebackers, amazing. Secondary, amazing. I'd love for them to I'd love to see them try and keep the scores down, keep a lot more pressure, especially with their pass rush on other quarterbacks. But that is to be seen. And I'd love for another Lamar Jackson MVP season. That would be nice, not only for my fantasy team, but I think that would also be fitting for Lamar Jackson. I think he really could prove himself to be the second or third best quarterback in the league. Bills, yeah, they really seem to have bounced back, and they started to look like that team last year where they could potentially go to the AFC Championship game and beat the Chiefs. Like, that's the team that they looked like on Sunday after that first touchdown. The remainder of the game, amazing offensively and defensively, they were just as good, keeping pressure on Jimmy Garoppolo and the Raiders offense. And offensively, just Gabe Davis, Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen. That's pretty much all you need. Now, earlier I talked about the rushing attack, which was very good as well. But could we see them starting to turn things around? I think so. I think Josh Allen is good enough. I just want to see less turnovers from him, please. Please. Number 5, Miami Dolphins, probably the best offense in the NFL. I mean, yeah. Raheem Mostert still looking pretty good for the Dolphins after I think he got traded mid-season last year. I don't think he signed with them in the offseason, but I do think that they have a balanced offense. I don't think it's just only that they can throw the ball deep to Jalen Waddle or Tyreek Hill. I don't think that's how this offense wins. I mean, they did lose Mike Gesicki, and they still look to be just as good of an offense, which kind of tells you about the coaching staff over at Miami, just how good and how consistently they can keep getting these results where you're having Tua throw 400, 450 yards in a game. I think this is a formula for the Dolphins moving forward. Throw the ball down the field, keep rushing the ball, play good pass defense. And every once in a while, you need your defensive line to stop the run. They're able to do that. You need them to get a sack. They have many different ways of getting a sack. They have many different players along that defensive line. Number 4, Cowboys. Yeah, they have the best scoring margin between two games since the 1970 merger. Plus 60 points. The defensively, they're amazing. They're fantastic. Offensively, for me, it's a wait and see with Dak Prescott. I wouldn't say I don't have trust in Dak Prescott, obviously. However, there can be games where he throws 2 or 3 interceptions, and you're like, what are you doing making that throw? He doesn't seem as athletic as he once was, probably because of a severe injury that he has suffered. But also, I just worry about the consistency week to week with this team. Defensively, they're going to be fine. Every week, this defense is going to show up. They're going to get in your face. They're going to be able to rush the passer, get 2 to 3 sacks a game, and maybe potentially get at least an interception a game. I mean, that's kind of how this defense is looking. They have fantastic corners and fantastic safety in Trevon Diggs. I mean, they have Stephon Gilmore, who I've talked about previously, but going forward, this is a team where I'm going to look out for the offense. Defensively, they're straight. They chilling. Number 3, the Eagles. Interesting placement for the Eagles here. I probably would have put them up another spot, but I can understand this. This is kind of where we're at right now. I mean, number 2 is obviously the Chiefs. You ask me right now, the Eagles and the Chiefs play. I'm going to take the Eagles just because I think the Eagles are a more well balanced team than the Chiefs. I mean, the Chiefs receiving core, a lot of concern there for me. Um, there's not really, yeah, you have Travis Kelce, but Travis Kelce is not going to be able to stretch the field for you as much as you would have even expected it to be with any of their other receivers. I mean, you look at Sky Moore, who you thought speedy, super fast wide receiver. He'll be able to be their deep threat. At this point, he doesn't look like he is. He doesn't look like he is. And they have other wide receivers who they've brought in that you would expect to help out. But without Tyreek Hill, it really does not look like the same offense, which stinks. Now, they do have a better run game than they had when they did have Tyreek Hill in those earlier Super Bowl runs. But still, I think that this is a pretty interesting offense. But with Patrick Mahomes, you kind of get a little bit of leeway because he can make plays that no other quarterback can. But I do worry about this offense. And defensively, they've really stepped it up. Chris Jones coming back, he has been amazing for this defense. But I just think that from years prior, they had they have a much more improved secondary. I think they've really closed up the holes, and I think that moving forward, that maybe Patrick Mahomes won't have to do shootouts anymore. He won't have to put up 35 points a game in order to win. Maybe he can win a couple of games scoring 27 points. I think that would be easier for him. And then finally, number 1, 49ers. Yeah. Only question mark for me for this team is literally, I mean, I haven't looked at their special team numbers, but I assume they're fine. Brock Purdy, what can he do? Is he really going to be that number 1 guy? I don't know. I do not know. All right. Now comes the time to make our predictions. Final predictions. Tonight, Thursday, I'm recording this on a Thursday. Giants 49ers. Give me the 49ers. 49ers minus 10. I'll take it. Saquon Barkley is going to be out for this game. It's going to be bad. I saw something for Brandon Ayuk, questionable with a shoulder. Okay. Yeah, this is going to be a pretty bad game. I'm going to take the 49ers probably by 50,000 points. I just don't trust the Giants. Defensively, they're all right. But Daniel Jones, I can't trust you. I can't. I can't trust you. I don't expect Daniel Jones to step up in this game. Moving on to Sunday, Titans Browns. I mean, after seeing the previous performance, I'm going to take the Titans here. The Browns on Monday Night Football, they just didn't do it for me. They did not do it. Now you have a lot of potential injuries on both sides. DeAndre Hopkins is looking good to go. Derrick Henry should be fine. Zadarius Smith, he did not practice because of an ankle, which is interesting. And then Myles Garrett got a nice little rest day, and then same with Joel Bitonio. Amari Cooper, something to watch out for. But yeah, I'm gonna take the Titans in this game. I just think that after watching that last performance by the Browns, offensively, I think these two teams are pretty well matched. However, if it becomes a close game, at this moment in time, I'm taking Ryan Tannehill as the more trustworthy player than Deshaun Watson, which I never thought that I would say. Never thought I would say. But that remains to be seen. Falcons, Lions. This will be an interesting one because these are two of the hot teams right now. Falcons, do they get 3-0? No. I'm gonna take the Lions here, -3. Give me -3 for the Lions. I think that the Falcons are gonna be forced to throw. I think Jared Goff is gonna throw potentially 300 yards, 2 touchdowns in this game. And that is going to force the Falcons to try and match them with points. I could see this easily being a 27-30 game. Um, I think this will be a higher scoring game for the Lions, and I think it'll just be hard for the Falcons to keep up. I mean, you look at Desmond Ridder versus Jared Goff. I mean, you just look at the stats right here. There's not really a comparison. But however, with that being said, I think that this will be another good rushing game for the Falcons. But I just think this is a team in the Lions who they have a good defensive line. You have Aiden Hutchinson who can play well against the run. And I think that they're able to kind of slow it down. And offensively, the Lions are just going to be able to outscore. Moving on to the Saints Packers. Let's see. Saints 3-0. I'm going to lead towards no, but yeah. I mean, two different teams. Points scored, 25th in the league for the Saints, second in the league for the Packers. Points against, fifth in the league for the Saints versus 14th in the league for the Packers. However, with that being said, I am going to take the Packers in this game. I don't think the Saints will start 3-0. Although I think this will be a low scoring game. I do like this over under right here. I could see a 20-23 game right on the dot. I will take the Packers -2. This will be a big test for Jordan Love, however. And if he does struggle in this game and the Saints ultimately end up winning, I think it will be because Jordan Love struggles. And hopefully Aaron Jones plays. And if he does play, I hope he plays well for my fantasy team. Texans, Jags. A potential upset right here. Potential. I don't think it will be, but there's a potential. Maybe CJ Stroud kind of goes out and he's able to perform fairly well. I'm not too confident about it, however. I am going to take the Jags. I won't take them in the Vegas spread though. -10, I think, is too much for the Jags. I think this could be a closer scoring game, like a 17-21 type thing, or a 24-21 type game. I don't think maybe the Jags can win by a touchdown. Maybe it's 17-24 or something like that. I could very easily see that. I think it will be a relatively close game though. But I do think that ultimately the Jags do win. I just don't like that line. Broncos, Dolphins, Broncos country, get the hell out of here. I mean, Dolphins -7. Give me the Dolphins -25,000. I think Russell Wilson's going to have to be forced to win a shootout against Tua. And I think there's only one person who comes up with that. I think Tua is going to be able to expose this defense for the Broncos. Yeah, you have Pat Surtain. Yeah, you have Kareem Jackson. You got guys on defense, right? However, with the multitude of receivers and the so far this season good rushing game by the Dolphins, I think that this team is just more than a Tyreek Hill offense or just a Jalen Waddle offense. They have a multitude of ways to beat you, and I think that they prove it in this game. I wouldn't be surprised if they put up 30 on the Broncos. Chargers, Vikings. After what I've seen, I think the Vikings get their first win of the season. However, I could see this going either way. This is a very tightly in terms of overall skill and trust. These are two teams that I don't really trust too much. But I think they are two pretty solid teams. Should be a shootout though. I mean, you look at points scored, both of these teams, Minnesota 18th and 6th for the Chargers in terms of point scoring offense. And then defensively, just kind of falls off a cliff. Takeover differential -6 for the Vikings, which is 32nd in the NFL. Not good. And then obviously we know they're the worst rushing offense in the NFL. So something to keep your eye on here. Because of the lack of a rushing attack for the Vikings, I could potentially see the Chargers winning this game, but I will take the Vikings here. I think Kirk Cousins will be able to put on a good performance and win the game. Maybe 2 touchdowns for Justin Jefferson as well. Patriots Jets. I am going to take the Patriots here. I think that Zach Wilson against Bill Belichick is not a good recipe. And although I do like this Jets defense on paper, they have not super impressed me. They haven't played defensively as well as I've thought, and I think that New England has just enough offensive firepower, particularly rushing, that they could really get some good yards against this Jets team, who I think is, all things considered, it is a good defense. I mean, 31st in the league for passing yards for I'm trying to look at, yeah, defensive pass yards a game, 20th in both passing and rushing yards. So not one of the top defenses in the league, which I, coming into year, thought that they would be. So I think that the Patriots start off 1-2. Colts Ravens. Give me the Ravens here. Don't even disrespect me with -8. Come on. Will we see Anthony Richardson? If he does play, it'll be interesting. It could potentially be a closer game than I thought, but I mean, just whoever's in at quarterback for the Colts will probably just get shut down by this defense. I mean, the Ravens have a fantastic defense. Just guys all over the place. Give me the Ravens. All right. Bills, Commanders. I'll take the Bills here, but let's see this line. Bills -7. Yeah, that's pretty much right on the dot. I don't think there's too much separation between these teams, particularly defensively. I think the Commanders have a really good defensive unit. Yeah. You look here. 12th in defensive pass yards a game, 17th in defensive rush yards a game, 109 rush yards a game. Not terrible. Now, one of those games was against the Broncos. Let's be honest. So it's not like they went up against the greatest offense we've ever seen. But I do think the Bills win this game, but I think it's a close one. I could see like a 27 to like a 20 game or something like that. I don't think that's out of the ordinary, but I do think Sam Howell does get kind of exposed. Panthers Seahawks. I think Seahawks win this game pretty easily. -6 here. I'll take -6 for the Seahawks. Very interesting to see, to kind of see if there's any development from Bryce Young. They can get any type of running game going to help him out. I mean, 30th in the NFL in points scored a game is never a good sign, but you look at 25 points scored a game versus 30.5 points allowed per game for the Seahawks. Never a good recipe for success. I mean, it's not like Carolina, 13.5 points a game and 22 points allowed per game is any better, but both of these teams not looking all that good. And 30th in the NFL for the Seahawks pass defense in terms of yards per game. Not looking fantastic either. But with that being said, I'll still take the Seahawks. I think the Seahawks will be fairly easily able to win this. Same thing in terms of easy to win the Cowboys. I think this could be another potential game where they shut out the Cardinals. I mean, I don't see the Cardinals being able to score double-digit points on this team. I mean, just Micah Parsons could potentially have 3 to 4 sacks in this game. I could see it. I mean, he's just that good. And Josh Dobbs against Trevon Diggs, against Stephon Gilmore. I'll take those guys every single time. Minus 12 is a lot for the Cowboys, but I take it. Bears Chiefs. Oh, I'd love to see a semi competitive game between these two teams, but I don't think we will. I'll take the Chiefs. Minus 13, though. In my heart, I want to say that Justin Fields will be able to score 2 or 3 touchdowns on his own, but I don't think that's happening, unfortunately. I'll take the Chiefs minus 13. Steelers and Raiders on Sunday Night Football. Eh. I'll take the Raiders. I think both of these teams are very bad offenses. But I think that the defense is not going to be able to score 14 points, 21 points on their own like they did last week. And I think with Max Crosby against any of the Steelers offensive line, Kenny Pickett's going to be under a lot of pressure, And I think that it's just going to be a very low scoring game, 43. I'll take the under on that. I think this could be a 13-17 game. Like it could be that low scoring of a game. I just think it'll be a lot of 3 and outs, and then maybe the difference in this game is potentially a Pittsburgh Steelers defensive touchdown. Maybe that's what wins them the game. Although I think that the Raiders are just going to be able to take the easy dub. And then on Monday, Eagles, Bucks, Eagles -5. Interesting line there. Very interesting line. Wow. All right, so I'll take the Eagles at -5. I think that they'll be able to win this game fairly easily. Be able to control the clock pretty much as well as they need to be, although Tampa Bay does have quite the defense. I mean, you look at defensive rushing yards a game, they're second in the league, but number 1 in defensive rush yards a game is the Eagles. So probably not going to be 200 yards rushing in this game for either team. But with that being said, I could potentially see an upset here. Maybe Baker Mayfield throws for 350 yards or something like that, but I doubt it. But it's not out of the question. He could go off. He does have some weapons around him. Final game. Rams Bengals. I'm gonna pick the Bengals, right? -3. I'll take the Bengals, but I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I think this might be a field goal to win game. Like it could be 23-20 type of game where Joe Burrow has to take his team down the field, and before time runs out, they hit a field goal to win. I think that's probably how this game ends up. I think it's a close game, low scoring. I mean, you look at this point differential between the Bengals. 13.5 points scored a game, 25.5 points allowed per game. Not a recipe for success. Not a recipe. However, I think that this is kind of the week where they're able to get some things together, and I think they're able to win. I'll take Bengals -3. We'll see. We'll see though. We will see. Anyways, that was today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. And if you're watching this after Thursday night, please leave a comment to let me know probably just how wrong I am. I'm wrong about most of my predictions, but I'm right in most of my evaluation. Wrong in the predictions, right in the evaluations. In most cases. Probably not. But thank you so much for listening. We now have a sleeping Carmella. So no more ball. Sleeping Carmella. good tennis story to start the show off with. I thought that was somewhat interesting. Hopefully, I can tell a little bit more stories about me growing up in my sports career that I probably didn't take as seriously as I should have. And when I did, when I was a junior in high school, there was a stretch of time where I took it seriously and I was the best player on the team for a stretch of matches. And I took it super seriously and I was really good for a couple of matches. And then I lost interest. And then I wasn't the best on the team anymore. And then senior year, I just was in la la land and I didn't take it seriously at all. I had a lot of fun, made a lot of really great friends, and there were so many great people on that team. But unfortunately, I just wasn't able to keep the consistency. And I don't play golf really anymore at all. I just mostly lift. I'm trying to get your boy's trying to get big. Your boy's trying to get a little bit of yoked. I still play basketball. I play pickup, usually with teenagers though, because of the gym that I go to. That's the primary age range. I don't go to a commercial gym. I go to a gym that I work at. Um, I hold my own. Obviously, I mean, sometimes we play with kids who are like 8, 9 years old, and I just try and shoot threes the whole time. I'm not trying to body up or try and dunk on any young kids. That's a bad look. That's a bad look. But hoping that my career as a sports athlete still continues on. I've never had any injuries related to sports. I've never broken a bone, torn a ligament, or anything like that. So let's hope that as I grow older and I get more feeble and get probably not as good in shape, I'm able to stay in shape and stay healthy and not injured. But we'll see about that. This is Zach Moore Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Enjoy the rest of your day or your night.